Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Looking at the attendees, there's some familiar faces: Carol, Kenny, Varen, and some new names as well. So thank you. I know some of you have been on. We've had a number of client calls, and this is sort of open format. And I've allowed about 45 minutes. I'm conscious that bizarrely we're all actually quite busy, I think, aren't we? Doing stuff, myself included. And I'll allow time for some for questions and answers at the end, if that's okay for everyone. I'm guessing you all know how Zoom works by now. Hello, Ellen. Helen, nice to meet you as well. Meet you virtually. So it feels a bit. It feels a bit like, has anyone ever done a triathlon? Or I know Simon has, or a marathon, or a big, or even just cooked for family on Christmas Day. You know that feeling when you've kind of built up for something, you know it's going to happen. The difference is, I guess, we don't know when we're going to go back to. And forgive me for saying normal. I'm not discounting the fact that things aren't normal, and it's not going to be normal when we go back. But when we go back to seeing patients, I mean by normal, in however that manifests itself. And to me, it feels a bit like, I remember back in 2014, I did a big triathlon. It was a half Ironman. In fact, Simon came along and put me up in his motorhome the night before, as I remember. And I remember I'd been training for about a year for that moment. And there it was, the only first time, and probably the last time, I've ever swum a mile, 1.2 miles, cycled 56 miles, and then run a half marathon. I'd done those distances separately, but never all together. And I remember jumping in the water at 7:30 in the morning, somewhere in Nottinghamshire, and waiting for the start, waiting for the klaxon to sound, and not really knowing what was going to happen. But I had two overwhelming emotions, I guess, at the time. One was hope. I was hopeful that I could do it. I'd done the training, I'd done the physical prep, I'd worked out where I was going to feed and eat and drink and hydrate and all the rest of it. I'd done the physical training, I'd done the mental training. I also had a plan. And I guess I'm a bit of an idealist, and sometimes idealists get accused of being Pollyannas, you know, just giving hope to people. Hope feels good. I'm hopeful we're going to get through this. I've been saying that for 4 weeks now. But we also need a plan as well. And I guess yesterday's blog and the one that preceded it, rather timely one about the Chief Dental Officer, it kind of struck a chord that we are now coming out of that sense of panic, fear, anxiety. We're coming out of that and starting to think about, what are we going to do? What are we going to take with us? What are the good things? And what goes into that plan when it happens? And I guess the question for now, which I hope the blog's kind of prompted you to think about, is how are you going to take whatever hope, whatever calm that you probably, I would hope, have at the moment, how are you going to take that with you into your teams and into your practices when it happens? We don't know when. I guess it's at least 3 weeks away. How are you going to take that with you? And also, because frankly, if you don't have a plan, you can't expect your team to have any kind of plan or direction either as well, at any time, let alone when we come out of this bizarre situation we're in at the moment. And I was chatting to Ali, who's one of the panelists, as a client of ours down near Eastbourne. And Ali, I'm just going to, are you unmuted, Ali? I'm not sure. Are you not unmuted?
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted.
You said this morning, we had a chat, when you went into the lockdown, and you actually went in a bit early, I think, probably sensible. Yeah. And you actually had your team saying thank you to you, which I thought was lovely and must have felt great. What was behind that? Do you recall?
Well, I think the thing is, everybody kind of went into panic mode because we didn't know what was happening. The girls didn't know whether they were going to have jobs and everything. And so I sat at home, and I made a plan that the trouble was, when it's an uncertain future, you can't be a leader. So I decided to, make a plan, and we were going to close early before we were made to close, and I had a plan. So I went in, we had an hour meeting, everybody had jobs to do, this was what was going to happen, we were going to try and fit crowns that needed fitting, blah, blah, blah. And everybody just literally took a big sigh, because everybody knew what they were doing, and they knew we were going to close, they knew we had jobs to do before we closed. And especially my associate, who's quite a young associate really, bless her, she afterwards said, thank you for taking charge, because it's made us all, you know, feel so much better that we're not in charge, you're in charge. But, you know, you've made a plan, you've made decisions, and that makes us all feel a lot better about it.
And you said, I mean, it's great to hear, isn't it, when you get that? And I think what I'm trying to get a feel for is how we can come out with that same sense of that there is a plan, there is hope, there is strategy, and it's got to come from somebody. And by default, in an owner-led dental practice, it's going to come from you or your equivalent. There's my godson in the background. Hi Noah. I guess you also said that it didn't come naturally to you, or hasn't previously come natural to you. I'm just thinking, what's changed in your thinking to go from being, and just so people, in case they don't know you, you're a hygienist running a dental practice with dentists in it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of your day job, right? But your day job also is one of leading a team, and you've done that very eloquently and very elegantly, and increasingly taking control. And yet you said it didn't come naturally to you. I'm just curious, what shifted in your own mind in terms of that leadership responsibility that you've clearly now recognised and made your own, put your own mark on it, Ali?
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is, before, it was kind of organised chaos, and you know, stuff didn't get done, and different things, and the one thing I've learned, it's taken me a long time to learn, is that actually control gives you freedom. Being in control of situations gives you freedom. If, you know, you suddenly have a situation and you've got to deal with it, obviously you have to deal with it. But one of the things is being in control of stuff and being able to plan, you know, makes you feel much better. And in that way, you can be a much better leader by having your, you know, your own plan. And you know, I think the fact that your dental team is your family, they're, you know, they're your loved ones at work, really. And, you know, you have to be the practice mum to, you know, make sure everybody's all right.
And that's what we've been talking about in lots. I've lost track of which conversation I've had about this. There's probably been many, but we were talking to Graham Rowntree last week, who's a rugby coach, international rugby coach. And for those that weren't on the call, I asked him, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're not physically with them. You can't be there to train them. And, you know, he said, like you mentioned mothering, he mentioned fathering. You know, he's fathering these, I'm sounding really old now, but kids, you know, that's what they are often. And yeah, it's interesting. I think that's a key role we've got is to make them feel safe right now. And it's great that you got those thank yous going into it. What I want to explore is, how do we get those thank yous when we come out of this? And I think making the team feel safe and giving them hope, knowing there is a plan, they sort of combine and gel together, and will, more than ever, and we always need to be doing this, but I think more than ever, get that feeling of trust amongst the team and amongst each other. And if we're trusting of each other, and bear in mind, I don't have all the answers any more than anybody else on this panel, or you have all the answers to any of this, Ali. But I do wonder if some of the answers will come from our team and from our teams. And therefore, having the environment where there is that trust, where people feel confident to speak their mind and speak their voice and come up with their ideas. The best ideas, right, might well come from the people who are currently, if you like, sat at home, and very soon, hopefully sooner than later, we'll be reliant upon them to help implement this plan, I guess. So we've got to get the right environment, and I think that's about trust and trusting of each other. Then we can discuss stuff, and I think the key thing then, because everyone's got a voice and all opinions have been listened to, the key thing then is we will commit without consensus. And I think that's a bit of a leadership myth, that you've got to get everybody absolutely agreeing to whatever's going to come next. We don't have the time in business, we don't have the time in dental practices to do that. And I think what I'm seeing increasingly with strong leaders in dental practices is the ability to get agreement and commitment to whatever it is we're agreeing to without consensus. A good team has the ability to, if you like, conclude what we're going to do without necessarily having consensus from everybody in the room, because contributions and thoughts and feelings have been taken into account. So I think that really we should be seeing this time almost as a bit of a project, really. A project that, unfortunately, we don't know when we're actually going to start to action this. But if we don't have a plan, you know, with all due respect to Karen on reception, well, is it her responsibility? Well, probably not, but she might have ideas. So let's get that environment right. And we were talking this morning, Ali, that I would almost have two action plans at the moment. I'd have one based upon, a bit like going into this, we had our cash flows and our cash forecasts. One a kind of worst scenario, you know, 3, 4, 6 months or whatever. One best scenario, 6, 12 weeks or whatever. And I think we need to go into this ready with maybe two plans. One is, at a drop of a hat, we're told we can start doing dentistry. Now, I know that's open to debate what kind of dentistry that might be, how much PPE, how much time between patients. I don't know, I can't answer that. And apparently your CDO can't answer that either, so we don't know. But at some point, let's assume you get, at the drop of a hat, okay guys, you can go back to, I'm doing that thing now, normal, even though it's not normal. And another plan based upon we get a bit of notice, reasonable notice, maybe a week, 2 weeks, maybe longer. And you've got that time now to start preparing. And I think what will then be the difference between implementing, and I want to talk about the components in that plan in a second, the difference between good implementation of that plan and acceptance of that plan will come down to how well we lead our teams, as we have been doing, Ali, before this period, during this period, talking to them, making them feel safe, and as we come out of that. What I tried to get across in the blog yesterday, there is going to be this sense, I'm sure, of everybody wanting to get back to, okay, I know my role now. I know what's expected of me. It's employee engagement level 1. Do I know what's expected of me? And what's expected of your team come 8:30 on whatever day it's going to be in May, June or July or whenever, what's expected of your team is probably going to be different to what was expected of them 4 weeks ago. And I think that's what we have to start planning for and anticipating, that it will be different. And how well we lead that will make the difference, I think, between uncomfortable conversations and unnecessary conversations, and trying to avoid those. We talked this morning, Ali, about, you know, one of the things that might need to be discussed is holidays. And as a self-employed person, and I've got a team of people that work with me, we haven't even it's kind of unspoken that we're not planning on taking any holidays, right? And yet there will be that kind of black and white approach from some people, I'm sure, in some teams. Well, I deserve my 2 weeks in Ibiza or whatever that I've booked for July or August. How are we going to deal with that? And the difference, I think, will be between that being handled well and that becoming an uncomfortable conversation, as an example, will be the environment and that sense of that sense of that we're all in it together at the moment, and how we're going to get that sense when we come out of this. So I don't think we can go back into this just expecting to waltz in at 8:30 on whatever day it is and things just carry on as normal. It's not going to be like that. Least of all because there will be restrictions, no doubt, initially in terms of what we can do clinically, and yet we don't know what they are. But also because everything's changed. Everything's changed in the last 3 weeks, and will probably continue to change in the next 3-4 weeks, however long. Simon, you're busily taking notes or planning your next webinar or whatever. I mean,
sorry, I've just come off one webinar and then a patient phone call, which then turned into a video phone call, ready to go into another webinar straight after this with the chief exec of the BDA.
You seem to be involved in lots of conversations. What are you hearing? What can you share? What would you like to share? And we're talking about leadership within dentistry.
Leadership. I can share quite a bit about leadership. That the new group, this group that's appeared over the last week or so, probably 10 days old now, that started off as an independent practitioners group set up by Jason Smithson, who a lot of you will know. And a guy called Luke Thorley, who's a practitioner in London. And within about a week, they'd got about 6,000 members on this group, and realised that there was within about a day, they realised that there was a problem with representation, particularly of private dentists. And it was as a result of the appalling Chief Dental Officer's webinar that I think everybody will agree was probably, destroyed the morale of the profession rather than brought it together at a time that it needed. To cut a very long story short, there's now a formal committee being formed, and there is now a new organisation in existence, and we're going through all the process of formalising it, the British Association of Private Dentistry. And because of the pressure that they have already managed to exert, and because of the connections that a lot of the people have got, the BDA, we've already spoken to the BDA, and the BDA are rolling out their private dentist committee again, which has been moribund for, while ever I've been involved with the BDA at those kind of committee levels. So it's about 12 years at least. And that's reforming, and that's what my conversation is at 3 o'clock with them. Because they appreciate in private dentistry, we can split this into private dentistry and NHS dentistry, because we've got to a degree, because they're being led, one's being led by the Chief Dental Officer, if that is what leading is defined as, and the other hasn't got any leadership from a policy point of view. BDA can suggest all sorts of things. Any society can suggest all sorts of things. You can put guidance in place, you can put recommendations in place, but what you haven't got is figureheads and leaders who can say, right, well, we represent you, this is what you need to do. And that's what a lot of private dentists feel has been missing from the BDA. And that's why there's been this huge drive into this private one. I've just got a message here. It is not exclusive to mainland UK, Sinead. Northern Ireland, we call it the British because the British Dental Association is, it represents the Northern Ireland as well. It's UK, but it was just getting a bit unwieldy, and we actually fancied a little bit of a dig at not a dig at the BDA, but to give them a bit of a, you thought a 4-letter acronym was better than an 18.
There's
enough bloody TLAs. I've been talking of TLAs for the last God knows how long, so we thought we'd have an FLA.
Just I'm looking at the messages. It's very hard trying to do this and read the messages, but there's people saying there's people trying to join them. You should still be able to join, even if you didn't, because the numbers are going up. So Vera and Upan, I think Jen should still be able to join somehow. I'd probably have to stop it and come out and go back in again to fix anything. But people are still, the numbers are going up. So we seem to have lost Simon for a moment. But I hope that answers your question, Sinead. We all love a dog in a webinar, don't we? Isn't this a great way of conducting stuff? We can do it from home. with our dogs on our laps. It's great.
Yeah, well,
so-
this one's already dug up the carpet. That's why he's staying here now.
So I was talking with Ali this morning about, and I'm conscious I want to give you some definitive sort of takeaways from this conversation before we open this up. It's all well and good saying we need to have hope, we need to have a plan. Oh, hi Jen, you're here now, good. But what goes into the plan? I'm just going to give you the kind of collective thoughts in terms of what the variables that need to go in, we need to be thinking about now. Because like I say, just like there's little direction from your ostensible chief dental officer, the absence of that direction from you as running practices is going to have the same effects. And I think people do need to feel safe knowing there is there's something going on here. Just like you had Ali going into this, how do we get it as we come out of it, as we go prepare for the restart? And I think the first one to think about is fundamentally, what is the message? Because when you go back to doing teeth at 8:30 on whatever morning it's going to be, people need direction in terms of, well, what generally are we saying to patients? And I don't just mean the practicalities of what are our hours and who are we seeing and when can I have an appointment, but how are we going to recognise this period? How are we going to refer to it? How are we going to, in what framework are we going to, in what context are we're going to refer to what's happened and how it's affected dentistry? And I think that's really important. Again, that's got to come from you. As I said in the blog yesterday, I was really anxious at first about calling this situation an opportunity, and I'm not dismissing. It's a horrible situation. You know, I'm sure we all know or have, and myself included, friends and family and loved ones who are very vulnerable right now. But as well as that, we've also have, I think, and what I'm seeing with a lot of clients and a lot of people just watching what their marketing message is, it is actually an opportunity to build something, to build trust and to make dentistry seem a bit more human. And, you know, seeing the likes of Simon doing messages to his patients from his garden and having virtual coffee mornings and bake-offs and all these other wonderful things people are doing, what we're actually doing, I guess, is we're making it a bit more human. And that's got to be a good thing. My challenge to you is, how do you keep that going? How do we keep that sense of togetherness, that the humanization of dentistry? How do you keep that going when we come out of this? The danger is we just go back to getting on with it, being busy, and all the same things kind of kick in again. White space, disgruntled patients, unbooked open treatment plans, nurses leaving to go down the road for another 50 pence an hour. All those age-old things we've had, now's our chance to whether you get rid of them, whether you ever get rid of them in total, I don't know, but reduce them. So what is the fundamental message? That's worth thinking about. What is it you expect the team to be, how to be referring to this period? What of opportunity for them, for their patients, for health and for well-being, or one of something else, something negative? And that direction is going to come from you. The other variable, I think, and these aren't in any particular order, they're just ramblings from yesterday, and it's not a definitive list. I'm going to open it up so you might have other takes on this. The other big variable, of course, will be clinically what we're allowed to do, and I'm certainly no expert on that. That's your world. But the pathways and how we do stuff, the PPE, the access to the PPE, the time in between patients, all of that's open for. It's open to change at the moment. How it's going to manifest, we don't know. But to assume it's going to be normal, I think, is naive. And to assume that your team are going to think it's going to be normal is naive. They're going to need some direction. And they'll be looking for you to interpret and understand and apply whatever rules are being imposed upon you by whoever's going to impose them. The third one is, and again, I don't think there's no right or wrong here, other than to be human and to be kind. How are you going to prioritise appointments? You know, just like Sainsbury's are prioritising 7:30 till 8:30 for key workers at the moment, and that's great. How are we going to prioritise appointments? Let's not be surprised when the phones are ringing off the hook and the book's getting very, very busy and there's no white space. We shouldn't be surprised when that's happened. So what direction, what fundamentals, what are we going to say to our teams, to our reception teams, so we start prioritising patients however you see fit? My take on it yesterday was we need to perhaps think about those that have supported us, those that haven't cancelled the direct debits, those that have stuck with you, to think about the vulnerable, to think about the over 70s, to think about the patient that rang you in panic because they've got a wobbly tooth and the dentures don't fit or whatever. Let's not make chasing the money and playing financial catch-up the priority. I don't think that's the right message. And I think patients will pick up on that. Remember, going into this, you had the Daily Mail effect. We had scepticism. We had that feeling that whatever you put out there, the tabloids are going to spin it round into nasty old dentists. We had that going into this era. We've maybe done a little bit to overcome that. We're seeing some headlines still in the press. How are we going to make the most of that coming out of this? How are we going to build that trust? How are we going to encourage people to come to the practice that didn't come to the practice before? And are they going to come just because you're a dentist with a website with some open hours and some prices? That was never why they came. You're shaking your head there, Ali, because I know you agree. You've not got 50 to 60 new patients a month coming to your practice historically by talking about dentistry. I'll pause a second. Reflecting on that, how have you done it?
So when I first started the practice, I kind of had in my head what I thought I should be like. And I started a squat, so we opened our doors with no patients. And very quickly I realised that really wasn't going to be the way this big sort of professional person, how I reacted, etc. And the biggest turnaround for me was that we stopped selling our dentistry and we started selling our experience. So we don't sell dentistry at all. If you look on our Instagram account, social media account, there are no teeth whatsoever. And our sort of target market is nervous patients. So we sat down and we thought, well, if you're a nervous patient, what would you like to see? And everybody, we said, well, we'd like to get to know the person, and we did a blog on stalking. Are you a dental stalker? And so I made a video of that. And we got so many patients off the back of that. The title is, Are You a Dental Stalker? Well, who's not going to read, have a look at the video? And we found that people stalked us for 2 years before they plucked up the courage, to come. And so, for us, we get messages every day. I hope you and the girls are all right. I've been thinking about your girls and everything. And it's been real people, and it's showing these people. I mean, I did a video recently where, I admitted I've had some really horrid days recently where I have been really sad. And that's taken me quite by surprise because I'm quite an upbeat sort of positive person. But I got loads of emails from people saying, I feel exactly the same, how lovely that you've talked about how you feel. And that's what people want to see. They don't want to see pictures of teeth and, what a brilliant filling, because basically most people, as long as you don't hurt them, they think you're amazing.
Yeah. And what's interesting, Ali, is and we were talking about this morning, and throughout the last few weeks, is that your messages during this period have not had to change. You've not had to stop talking about teeth. You've been talking about being a human being who works on your team, who work in a dental practice. And I think that's people have resonated with. So the fundamental message, the clinical pathways, the PPE, the prioritising appointments, who do we see? And the other variable, I think, is the time. Maybe the time that we have with our patients. And I know it's a bit fanciful, and money aside, we'd give them all the time in the world, and we haven't got a business to run. I do understand that. But I wonder if there's a sweet spot, even if you've got an NHS contract and those numbers to hit. I do wonder if there's that sweet spot where we actually help more of the patients proceed with the treatment that you've discussed, elective or otherwise, by spending more time with them. And actually there's probably a sweet spot where we have slightly longer appointments, but actually get better outcomes for patients and better outcomes for you as a business. And I mean financially there. But there's a win-win. The patient gets what they want because you've got the time to understand what they want. So although it seems counterintuitive to go back into this and be rushing around, and you know, it is an interesting one, but is that point where we perhaps have slightly longer appointments to give patients a bit more time for them to start to re-engage with us and for us to re-engage with them? I do think that's an opportunity. How much time? I don't know. But again, that direction, changing the length of appointments, ain't going to come from, well, it might come from the team, but it's likely it's going to need signing off by you and from the top. So I think the time that we spend with patients, prices may need to be reviewed. I think that needs to go into your plan. If we're changing time, if we're changing equipment, if we've got to buy additional equipment, if we've got to throw away a £3.75, mask every time we see a patient, it's going to have an effect. And again, there's no excuse for going into this blindfolded. We should have an open mind to that, to be thinking about our prices.
Hey, if you can get those masks for £3.75, I'll have 1,000 now.
We'll talk afterwards. I do know 10 million arriving next week. They're on a plane, apparently. And also, I want to talk about what goes into your marketing message as well. What you were touching on there, Ali, is you've never really marketed dentistry, is the fundamental message. You've never marketed dentistry, and yet, for those that don't know you, you have a dental practice, hygiene-led, in a barn at the end of a farm track. With all due respect, it's beautiful, but it's also
nowhere,
right? So there aren't many chimneys around where you are there? Okay. So, and yet consistently you're getting 50 to 60 new patients a month. And there's probably people on this call that have twice as many surgeries and supply of dentistry as you do, who would, I'm going to say chop off your right arm, probably the wrong metaphor, but give up a lot to get that same level of demand from your community. So I think the marketing message will need to be thought about very carefully. And I think there's two aspects to that. One is there'll be those patients that want to come in and just be told everything is okay again, assuming it's true, okay? Because they've not had their checkup, they've had to wait, they've missed their appointments, their appointment was cancelled, their appointment was rearranged. Maybe they've allowed their appointment to be shifted a bit because you've told them, we're going to see the over 70s first, whatever. But there's been a bit longer between them seeing you and the last time. And maybe fundamentally, I guess they're going to want to hear, am I okay? Have my BPE scores gone backwards or forwards in the 9 months since I last saw you? Have I been doing it right? Have I been brushing my teeth correctly? They're going to want to hear that. Now, there might then still need to be treatment that needs to be done, of course. But I think what it will really do is polarize that skepticism that people have, particularly if you're an NHS practice, but you also, if you like, top up the delivery of NHS through private treatments. Patients are going to be even more skeptical than ever, potentially, because they're watching the money in their pockets, because they know you've been watching the money in your pockets. And if for one moment patients think that you're just trying to play catch up financially, either you or your associates, I think patients are going to sense that. So I think we've got to be really careful with those regular patients coming in who probably just want to be told initially, is everything okay? What I was touching on yesterday is elective treatments as well. and he's not on the call because he's very busy, ironically, talking to patients about when they come back, what he can do with them. A chap called Steve Neal down in Bristol. And bear in mind, I think if you're in that elective market, and there are people out there who are still thinking about having something done to their teeth, they're choosing to have it done, think of how much time they've had to research it. They won't have just been to your website anymore. They've perhaps been to a dozen websites. They've perhaps been to YouTube. They've perhaps been to Instagram. They've perhaps been to Wikipedia. There's all the research in the world. We could have a whole era of elective patients being extremely educated more than ever about the thing they've come to you to have done. They've maybe made that decision already. So I think it was always good practice, but I think it'll be even more important to understand what they know already, to find out where they are in that decision-making process, what information they need from you to then proceed with that treatment. So just hold back on diving in, talking about treatment options when they come and see you for elective treatments, and spend a bit more time with them, asking the big open questions. What research have you done? What budget do you have? They may have already put the money aside. And again, stepping into their world, I think is going to be even more important than ever. The other thing about on the marketing front, I think there's probably three key things that we're getting across really well as a profession, more than we normally do, because we've got the time to do it. And now isn't the time to be selling dentistry, if it ever was. And I think there's three key messages which are coming across in people's marketing feeds. One is the sense of we're in this together, the sense of that social license, that sense of community. And I think within that, again, that there are then these three components. One is that we care about the environment. I know it's kind of got pushed to one side, but it will still be a relevant topic when we come out of this. And being held to account by the public for the genuine concern people have about single-use plastics. It's not part of the narrative. It's not on the news at 10 anymore, but it will come back. It's bound to. So I think the contribution towards the reducing our impact on the environment needs to come back into the marketing. What's also going on is that by humanising dentistry, hopefully we're getting across that trust really is there. It can be there by humanising dentistry, and having more conversations now with our community hopefully means we can come out of this, and the value for money judgment that people make about dentistry will be an easier one for them to make, because they've seen a bit what goes on in a dental practice. They've seen that there's tears, Ali, there's emotion, the heart and soul that goes into this. What we've got to avoid is the Daily Mail headlines, which I can foresee, which is, and forgive me for swearing, money-grabbing bastard dentists think they're having a bean feast, now the doors are open again. We can't allow that to happen. Again, that's got to come from you, Simon.
The thing is that's going to happen there. I mean, I'm trying not to give away too much of what this new group is about, but you know, you're hitting the vein of what a lot of people have thought a long time, and you've spoken about for a long time. And there is a general feeling within the profession that the doing the right thing is the way that this will all come about. And because of that, you now got the groups that are getting involved, like the BAPD. All the press releases that are going to be released have got nothing to do with money. They have got nothing to do with the financial side of it, and all to do with patient care. Yeah. And fundamentally, this is what you have been saying all along, that, you know, chase the money and it's the wrong thing to do. Chase the right thing and the money will follow. It will be slower and it may not be as much, but it's more ethically, morally, and satisfyingly earned, as far as I'm concerned. And I think you'll find that depending on how we can pitch things as a profession to the press. The press are very interested at the moment talking about this. It's obviously very slow news because it's a bit like Brexit now. Brexit's just not happening, is it? Or is it? But, you know, they're wanting stories, and they're wanting public interest and human interest stories. And the humanity that's coming across from the NHS is something that we've always had. We've always, you know, go above and beyond. There are some in the profession, obviously, who are more worried about lining their own pockets first, but the people who are not, they're a self-selecting group who will step away from that to do the right thing. So I think the marketing and things that we do are going to be based on this social responsibility. Yeah. And the way that will come out, I actually personally, and I'm not trying to be overly optimistic, but I think when you talk about the opportunities, some of the opportunities we will have will be based on the fact that a lot of people have not been looked after at all during this shutdown. Some practices have shut up shop and just put NHS 111 on, and some dental practices, you know, private dental practices I know have done that. And whilst it's not going to be rich pickings, there are going to be people out there who are disillusioned, and they will want to change to practices like we run. The problem will be the demand, because if we do have to change how we operate, well, we will have to change how we operate, then we're not going to be able to meet that demand for our own patients, let alone take on loads of new patients. Because if we're suddenly on to an hour per patient rather than half an hour per patient, you know, there's a significant dint in the bottom line. There will be ways around that. It'll be extending your hours, it'll be extending your availability, but having to control the staff costs as a result. Some practices may well end up having to make some staff redundant because they won't be able to cover that. And I think that is another elephant in the room that we probably haven't been sort of discussing, that potentially all our practices could be a little bit smaller for a little while before they come back on stream. But then again, it may be just an overly pessimistic view.
Well, who knows? But I do remember in 2013, I think it was, being invited to speak at the BDA conference at Excel down in London. And I was given the brief. And Kevin, can you talk about this for a bit? What is it? Is doing the right thing always good for business? ? And that was the name of the presentation I made. And 4 people turned up. 4 people turned up. And next door to me, they were queuing out the door for an hour's lecture on, I don't know, crown lengthening or something. And I think what this period will have changed, exactly as you say, Simon, is that doing the right thing in business, doing the right thing in health care is become even more important. And what it's exposed, when you strip everything away, when people are forced to stay in their houses, when we're forced to do a bit of navel gazing in business, that we do have a lot of common ground with the people that we serve. And sometimes that common ground gets lost in the noise of everything else. But when we quiet and when we calm and when we slow down, it reveals that common ground. And patients will pick up on that. It's the same right now with certain retailers. You know, I'm well known for the fact that I despise Tesco's, because 30 years ago I financed businesses that supplied to Tesco's, and I see what they do to their supply chain. You know, even the most cynical of people, anti-Tesco's people like myself, are kind of going, maybe they're not so bad. Maybe they're not so bad. And I think people's perceptions will change. And again, that's one of the things to take into your action plan, which is, okay, all this nice stuff, all this good stuff, all this social license we're talking about, is it going to get forgotten about at 8:30 on Monday, the whatever of June or July? It'd be a real shame if it is forgotten, because that social license is what will help you engage with the 40% of the population that don't go to the dentist. Simon, can you keep an eye on the questions? Because there's a good one there, and I can't quite
I am. I'm answering questions and
Yeah.
sending links and.
I think you're right, Sinead. It is ironic. It's taken something like this to maybe reset society, to reset. I'm not saying consumerism and capitalism is bad, far from it. But there was always two ways of making money in business. There was doing the right thing and allowing the money to follow, and there was chasing the money. And when we go back to the normal I keep referring to, patients are going to be even more sceptical about the money. They're going to be even more sceptical about, well, why isn't this available on the NHS? You'll be even more sceptical when they come in for a checkup and you tell them they need a filling. Will they trust you? Will they believe you? And that's great for you, Ali, with your cohort of loyal patients that have been coming to you for years. But as Simon says, what about the supply of dentistry? If it contracts and demand goes up, something's going to shift. And that'll be a shame. There's a whole generation could be left out here. The other variables, and I'm going to sort of open things up to questions in a second. I think the other variables are things like, how do we deal with staff when they ask for holidays? Because they will, and that's down to your leadership. How do we deal with staff when we expect them to perhaps work longer hours? How do we prioritise our suppliers? How do we prioritise our time? How much time do we spend with our team? Everyone's saying how great it is now while our staff are furloughed, we can pick up the phone and talk to them once a day. But will we still be doing that in a few months' time? I hope we do. And even if that means taking a bit less time doing dentistry, a bit more time to spend with our patients and with our team, I think there's a sweet spot that we can get there and catch that right, and the businesses will flourish. So I'm conscious that I don't like webinars. I haven't put any slides up because I think you should be able to talk without pointing at slides and everyone can read, but I know you also want some kind of takeaways. So here's your homework, folks, and thanks for bearing with me because everyone's still on the call. 2 plans. Have 2 plans that take all those components into account. The fundamental message, the clinical pathways that are probably going to be imposed upon us, it will be different. How we prioritise things, how we talk to our team, how we talk to our patients, what direction we give to our team when you're busy doing your doing in the surgery, what the marketing message is going to be, what our prices are going to be, how we're going to handle those difficult conversations so they're not difficult with our staff. 2 plans taking those components into account, and one assumes it starts tomorrow. One assumes that whoever gives direction to dentistry, not sure who it is at the moment, possibly Sarah Hurley, but that's debatable. Whoever gives that direction gives you 24 hours notice. Please don't tell me you had no time to prepare. We've got plenty of time to prepare. Okay. The other one is assumes you get a reasonable amount of notice. Okay. Have 2 plans on your desk. The other thing is think about what you're going to take with you. What's good about this period? Okay. You know, Alison, when we spoke this morning, we actually started our meeting 10 minutes late because you were doing some yoga. I'm cool with that, right? You were all Zen, you told me. I'm having a Zen moment. You're doing your yoga. I mean, hell, maybe we spend more time with our teams focusing on their physical and mental well-being than we did before. What's good that we can take with us? Videos, video consultations. We know they're working. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for messages. I've got to dip out, ready for another meeting in 5 minutes. Okay, Simon, that's fine. So what's good that you're going to take with you? What are you going to take with you that's going to maintain that social license that you're starting to rewrite right now with your public? What are you going to take with you? Right now, spend a bit more time with your team. I know you can't do it face to face, but we spoke about this on another call the other week. Get them to think about if we had to start again, what would we run this practice like? And I don't just mean the patient journey, but if we had to start again and we could start again, come up with some good ideas. Maybe come up with some stupid ideas that would otherwise not get spoken. Because in them stupid ideas, there's probably some golden nuggets as well. Build on that social license and also think about how you're going to handle those very different expectations of the patient that's in for the checkup and the regular treatment and the patient that's coming in for the permission for you to talk about stuff, the elective treatment. Remember, they'll have done more research than ever because they've had the time to do it. And if you miss that and you don't gauge that right, then you're just going to turn these people off. So I'm going to unmute Drew now because I'm sure he's itching to say something. He normally is. Drew, I'm giving you the 3-second notice.
Right. Thank you very much. That was really good.
What are you hearing in the tubules community?
I think, look, there's two schools of thoughts to think about here. And invariably, one school of thought from people is, oh my God, what's going to happen? Where are we going to go? The panic school of thought. The second school of thought is people who are forward thinking. You know, sort of, when I say forward thinking, it's almost we've accepted where we are. We've got to think ahead. We've got to move on. We've got to soldier on. I'm hoping that most of the people who have been on this call are on that second school of thought. Where we go. Post-COVID, at least for the short term, possibly for the long term, I don't think dentistry is going to remain the same that it was. That treadmill, get a patient in, get a patient out, blah, blah, is gone. I think things will change, at least for short and medium. Humans have a terrible memory, so long term we'll see. But if we can make those changes short and medium term, then it'll form part of our habit. It'll form part of our systems. It'll form part of what we should be doing. And hopefully we carry that in the long term. Now, short term, we're not going to end up seeing patients just like, you know, people think, yeah, you know, 7th May lockdown ends, or whatever date, I say 7th May. Next morning, 8:30, open up, Mr. XYZ, would you like to come in? Is not going to happen. My friends in China have said that a lot has happened in terms of how they've actually started seeing patients. They had to fill lots and lots of forms. They had to go through a lot of paperwork. They had to vet these patients. Then these patients come in. And then he sent us a picture of his team, his dentists. They were all clad up in complete gowns, masks, everything. There was PPE at next level. When the patient went, they had to then wait, clean everything up, and then allow for some time before the next patient comes in. What I'm saying is that you're going to be in a place where you will be working at a pace that's not very fast. You're going to be seeing maybe possibly fewer patients and slowly ramping that up. I have no idea how the NHS is going to cope in this and where the UDA system will come in this, because it's impossible to go back to back. But this is going to be the perfect opportunity to actually work on how you build that. That's what we've always wanted, seeing patients slowly, not rushing, building that trust, building that time. It's going to become important. The other aspect we may find is people will be a bit wary of emptying their pockets for treatment other than what's extremely important at this point in time. People who have been doing elective treatments, whether it's smile makeovers, those patients are not going to disappear, but patients are going to be a bit more aware and thinking about where they spend their cash while we get through this. I think the perfect opportunity here lies in, because the start is going to be slow and speed up, it may be that you get a fast speed up of the emergency patients and you get a dip after that. But at some level, there'll be some slowness. That's the important, really important time to create those systems for you and your team so that everyone ingrains it into their habit. So as you then start, ramping up again and not getting that time in practice to rethink and reevaluate your systems, you've actually done it before. At this now, and as you go back in, create those systems. It's extremely important, and ingrain those systems into the head of your team so that when it really gets busy, all of this is in there. So therefore, to me, the questions to ask is, what kind of practice are you going to be 10 months, 12 months, 24 months from now? How are you going to get there? And which team members do you want on there? Not names, but team members, as in, what do you want each person there representing, standing, and working from? I think this is an opportunity. Short-term, tough, long-term, real growth. This is where I think we will change. And that's what I'm getting a message from. All the stuff we've been doing on tubules with the online together forums, which everyone can, the webinars which we have done. It's all about putting one foot outside our world. That's what we said. So we had Mark Shaler, Kevin Rose and Graham last week, and a few others in the weeks. We've spoken to associates. Just look at what other industries are doing in this free time. Very important. Just look at how people are approaching things, because you'll get ideas that you wouldn't get otherwise. So those are the few bits of thought processes I would think. Another big bit of thought process here is, and this is what I like to think from is, right, things are tough. The best way to get out of toughness, the best way to get your team really empowered, if you really want to increase your team's energy, is ask your team, how can we serve people the best? Because when you serve others, there's a feel-good factor. When there's a feel-good factor, it just raises the energy of the team and they start rolling out with ideas. And that's where your business will grow. We did that a few weeks ago. I said, listen, COVID's come in. We've had lots and lots of cancellations on Tubule subscriptions. How do we serve the community the best? Our team created all the free stuff on Tubules, everything. It was a team effort. We've had 5,500 new base members in 10 days. Never had that sort of pace before. But what can you do on a similar level for your practice now? In fact, starting from now and moving forward. That's the challenge to put to your teams. That's my sort of little two pennies worth.
Reassuring, because I guess I sort of sit, you know, one foot in dentistry without being a dentist and one foot outside of dentistry. That's what I do. I look what's going on outside of dentistry and bring it in and tweak it for dentistry. And to hear, I guess, fundamentally the same thing, Drew, from someone who's right at the heart of what's going on it reinforces that. And I think that, you know, it's putting some specifics behind this ideal of doing the right thing and being clear on that. I'm sensing that dentistry is going to become, rightly so, it's going to be back to being about health care. That doesn't mean to say we won't be doing elective treatments or whitening or implants, but I think we're going to be putting the care back into healthcare, which is great, and the timing's right. Arguably, we need this. You know, it's just perverse how it's come around through.
And not forgetting, one of the biggest things I think every one of us needs to think is Purple Cow. For those of you not aware about it, just go to Seth Godin and read Purple Cow, because this is your moment to say, how are you going to be Purple Cow? That's the other thing to think.
So, folks, thank you for everyone. Well, everyone stayed on the call, so I guess we've engaged you and got you thinking. I'm actually going to somehow, don't know how, just try and open this up. If anyone's got any questions, you can sort of type them in, I think, somehow. You can type a question in there, in the right-hand side of your screen. I'm just going to unmute a couple of people. I sort of know their names. Carol Somerville Roberts, if it's okay, I'm giving you a warning just in case you're, I don't know, not ready. I'm going to unmute you and make you into a panelist, if that's okay, just to say hello, see how you are, and see what you've heard in this conversation, if that's okay. Stand by. Carol. Here she is. Hi, Carol.
Hello.
We can't see you, but we can hear you. I hope I gave you a bit of warning. I was going to make you live.
Hang on, I'll put the video on. There we go. Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I wasn't expecting that, Kevin, but hello.
Well, you know, I like to keep you on your toes.
yeah. No, been really, really good. Really interesting. Hi. Well, Drew's been muted, but you know, really enjoyed listening actually, because I'm trying to pick up on as many seminars as I can. And I think you're right, it's very easy to kind of go one of two ways, either, oh my God, this is terrible, or, you know, right, how are we going to be able to, you know, develop and change our practice? And I'm certainly keeping in regular contact with my team. I think that's really, really important. And, you know, based on what Drew's just said, I'm kind of saying to them, you know, right, how are we together going to reopen this? And we're certainly going to have a plan. It's not going to be a question of, okay, the doors are open, here we go. It's going to be, okay, the doors are open, but the team will come in advance, we'll reconvene, we'll debrief, we'll see how everybody's doing, first of all. and really think about how we want to best serve our patients and the wider community. So it's really reinforced my belief that that is the right thing. I think you're right, do the right thing and the money follows, rather than always trying to chase the money.
I mean, I'm conscious that talking to you and hopefully the people on this call, I'm sort of preaching to the converted. I mean, we've done some work in the past. I know you've got the right values and you're coming from the right place. So it's probably not news to you, but I guess that, even if we got the command from somewhere this afternoon, you can open your doors tomorrow, I'd still encourage you to build into that plan and say, right, the first thing we're going to do is actually we're open, but we're going to have a morning together. That kind of idea. So we're not just diving in. We can't ignore what's happened. It's changed society. It's changed how we do business. Hopefully it's changed us all a bit for the better. Whatever that might be, whether it's reading, yoga, painting, or heaven forbid, how we lead our dental practices. What an opportunity. I'm going to go brave now. Thank you, Carol. I'm just going to pick someone on the attendees. This is when everyone disappears, isn't it? Oh my God, don't pick me. I'm just going to randomly pick someone and actually just invite you to speak, if that's okay. Where do I don't. This is terrible. I feel bad now for doing this. Desiree, I'm going to promote you to a panelist. Are you ready? Would you like to just say hello and let's see how this goes? Desiree, I don't know you, and I don't think we've met or spoke before. We possibly have. You've come across as some smiley faces. Can you hear us?
I can, yes. Can you hear me?
Forgive me. Yes, we can. Forgive me for just jumping at the deep end, but
yes, I was really hoping you're not going to choose me. I think we've met once. You gave a course with Opie Sedendo.
Oh yes.
Yes,
that's July. Yes, of course.
Yes, and our whole team was there. So thank you so much for today. It was really, really amazing. Yes, it gave us a lot of food for thought, I think. It almost affirmed things that we were already thinking, and it's good to know that we were not the only ones, thinking that. We were already thinking, when we get the go-ahead to open, we will have a little team party first of all, just get everybody back on board. We have been keeping in touch with the rest of the team, once a week Zoom meetings, and it's been loads of fun. And I think this is when you need to pull together now. As you were saying, Alison, it's your family. It's your family, and you need to pull together, and you need to change the way you think of dentistry. So yes, I think today was amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm probably going to sign off on that. Yeah, let's change the way we think about dentistry, because if we can change the way we think about it, heaven forbid the Daily Mail might even change the way they think about it. You're laughing there, Carol. It's ambitious, but we've got to start somewhere. And we can change maybe the way the public think about dentistry. I like I say, 4 weeks ago, I was reluctant. I did a little video call for Drew for Tubules, and the first one didn't make the cut because I played it back, and I think I'd used the word opportunity in the space of 3 minutes about 17 times. And I thought, oh my God, no, maybe that's just the wrong message. And, but I guess that's the different way of thinking about this. I think this is, and I think everyone on this call would agree, it is an opportunity. Not an opportunity to make money. You will make money in business by looking after people and doing the right thing. And that's never changed. What this period, I think, has exposed is the relevance and importance of that message. And for some people, as Simon alluded to, that might cause a little bit of a shake-up in terms of how we do things. If your business model was built upon, pile it high and sell them cheap kind of thing, keep it ticking over, maybe that needs to be looked at. Maybe it always needs to be looked at. But I think that's it's food for thought, right? Good, thank you. I'm going to sign off if that's okay, unless anyone wants to post any questions or raise their hand, or Ali.
Can I just say, a quote that I have above my computer at home is Henry Ford of Ford Motors. And I mean, this was written a long time ago and it's still true for today. And one of the things he said is, a business absolutely devoted to service will have only one worry about profits, and that is they will be embarrassingly large. It is a great quote. Put it by your computer, and everything I do, it you know, I think about that. You know, it's the service that you give people that makes the money. It's not the dentistry.
Wise words. What she said. There you go. Folks, thank you very much. Thanks for joining the call, and Desiree, and for Carol for being dropped in at the deep end there. You'll be ready next time, but I'll pick on someone else. Great, thank you very much, and I hope that's got you all thinking. We are doing Wednesdays. I've opened my diary up for the foreseeable future, open up forever. Wednesdays, if anyone just wants to chat about anything, even if it's just, help me, Kevin, I'm feeling a bit shitty, or even if it's, Kevin, help me knit things back together, or what we're talking about during the call, or recap on something. If you go to our Facebook page, through the miracles of Facebook, you can actually book an appointment and we'll just have a chat, right, about anything you want. I hope that's useful. So I'm going to end the call. Thank you very much, folks, and we will do another one again. Himesh, thank you for your message, and we'll do another one of these next week, I think, at some point. And enjoy lying around in your pyjamas, but use the time wisely. Cheers, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.